Bleacher Report has suggested an Alex Caruso trade that I want to talk to you guys about. I actually find it pretty interesting, probably more layered than even what they intended for it to be. We're also going to talk about the Bulls' unguaranteed contracts heading into the 2023-24 offseason and who could be coming back off of that, and dive into the mailbag. We're getting into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans, welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. Let's go ahead and get into everything. First, if you want to follow me, you can do so at CEO Haize, at CEO Haize. And if you want to follow the show, you can do so at Bulls Central Pod. But let's get into the content for today. So first up, Bleacher Report had a list of trades, and the Bulls were listed on one of these trades, and I actually found the deal pretty interesting for a few different reasons. So they had Alex Caruso going to the Dallas Mavericks, who are absolutely going to be looking to add whatever talent that they can to that team, for Reggie Bullock and the 2023 first-round pick. Now, on surface level, I looked at this deal initially and said, Reggie Bullock, why? That's not really anything that the Chicago Bulls could or really should want at this point. We need size, right? When you look at Bullock, 6'6", a wing defender that can do a little bit of something, right? But he's already over the age of 30, older than Alex Caruso. And I'm just like, why would Bleacher Report have the Bulls? What would they possibly think are the Chicago Bulls' motivation to go after this player? But when I look at it and look kind of at the details of it, Reggie Bullock has a partially guaranteed contract for 2024. And for the Chicago Bulls, a team that can be looking for as much cap relief as they can to separate themselves even more from that luxury tax area. We've talked about it. If they re-sign Kobe and Vooch, use their mid-level exception and their biannual exception, which they may not use until the middle of the season, that puts them basically right up at the luxury tax. And that is not signing anybody else other than, for that mid-level exception type money. So, and I really didn't think that really left the Bulls too much wiggle room. But when you look at Reggie Bullock's partially guaranteed $10 million deal, that changes some things for the Chicago Bulls. Not only does it provide them a little bit more space under that salary cap, they could also push them to possibly use the disabled player exception for Lonzo Ball to create even more cap space. Remember, I've said before, if the Bulls do use the disabled player exception, Lonzo Ball's full contract still counts against the salary cap for the Chicago Bulls, which would then hurt their ability to even use that disabled player exception because it then sends them into the luxury tax, something that we know Jerry Reinsdorf just does not want to pay. So looking at those aspects of it, I sit there and I could say, hey, on top of that, you're getting a 2023 first-round pick for the Bulls to get back in this draft. That's one of the videos I did this past week, is what are the chances that the Bulls could get back into the draft this offseason, and if they even be willing to. But again, it allows the Bulls to do a couple of things that can definitely help this team add significant talent this offseason. You're adding then a draft pick, a young player, hopefully with some potential, that's at a pretty decent level for the Chicago Bulls as well. And so, listen, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, hey, this isn't necessarily a bad deal. Now, yes, in this you're getting rid of Alex Caruso, which is an issue for just the Bulls defense, and saying what Alex Caruso has meant to the Bulls defense overall. He's been a huge part of the motor of that defense. We showed the plus minuses if you're over on the community tab. So again, something to look out for. But if the Dallas Mavericks are willing to trade that 2003 first round pick, again, it would not come to the Bulls. They wouldn't even have their own first round pick if it falls. If it's top 10 protected to the New York Knicks. So again, you have to look at some things like that. But the Knicks, part of the reason why the Mavericks got in trouble at the end of the season was trying to maintain hold to that pick. So if they do get that pick and they use it, I just don't know if Alex Caruso is the level of deal that they necessarily may be going after if they do move that pick. I think that they're probably going to want a player probably a little bit higher level than Alex Caruso, unless they just rank Alex Caruso really high, which is absolutely a possibility. I've always said that Alex Caruso's value and worth to a championship level team is going to be even more than what it's worth to the Chicago Bulls. So Not that the Mavericks are anywhere close to that, but if they think, and especially if they're able to bring Kyrie back, they could look to add some things like that. So again, not a terrible deal. Still not one that I'm necessarily thinking is too realistic, but I don't dislike the bones of that deal at all. Guys, let me know what you guys think on that down below. Again, I want to see Alex Caruso stay here. So, I don't necessarily know. I mean, hey, there are some very good players in that draft, and when you look at the salary cap of it all as well, hey, you never know. But let's go ahead and look at some of our unguaranteed contracts this season. We've done player evaluations. I didn't do any for like Marko or Carlik Jones or any players like that because they just weren't a big part of the Bulls roster this season. But when you look at Andre Drummond, who has a player option of $3.36 million, you have Carlik Jones, who he has an unguaranteed contract of $1.9 million. And then you look at Marko Simmonovic, who has a contract of $1.8 million. Again, another partially guaranteed deal for the Chicago Bulls next season. And Drummond, I really don't get a feel on Drummond. The last that I read is that the rumors, it was nothing substantial, that Drummond is seriously considering taking up that player option. Maybe he doesn't think he's going to get that money out in the open court with, how seldom he was used against the Chicago Bulls. I don't know. But I coming into this offseason, I really thought Drummond probably isn't going to come back just because of how Billy Donovan used him. But let's say Drummond does come back. Player option, let's just say he takes the money. That leaves Carlik Jones and Marko Simmonovic. And Carlik Jones, while I understand what the Bulls did on the back half of that season, I know some people are wild by the G League statistics. I'm not. I think Carlik Jones stays in the Bulls organization, but I think he's going to go back to a two-way contract. Me personally, Marko Simmonovic is the biggest question here. And we actually have a voicemail on Marko, so I'm not going to get too in-depth here. I will in just a second because I think it's the first voicemail up or it's the second one. But when it comes to Marko Simonovic's contract, it just boils down to this. If you're not going to have him in a role, if you're not going to use him at the NBA level next season, not no more G League, and let him take his bumps and bruises and hopefully grow from it and build some confidence, you got to get rid of the contract. There's no point in he's on an actual NBA contract. That is a full roster spot that could be used to go elsewhere if we're not going to use him, right? And with the Bulls, especially as cash strapped as they are, you're going to need every potential roster spot to go to a player that's actually going to be able to be used. And so unless Billy Donovan and AK are ready to actually throw him out there and let him sink or swim at the NBA level in his last year on his contract, I think you got to get up out of that, especially because it's partially guaranteed, and bring a body in here you can actually use. All right, let's go ahead and get into the voicemails. Well, before we get into the voicemails, let's get back. We have a message from one of our sponsors, and that's Aura. I'm sure most of you know anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full legal name and personal email, your home address, phone number, and even your relatives. For me, personally, I never took this kind of stuff seriously, that people can take my personal data and use it for their own financial gain. Well, in 2019, I got my identity stolen, including my social security number and credit card information, and it was a total nightmare getting it all sorted out. From recouping loans that were taken out in my name and shopping sprees on my credit card, there are some really bad people out there, and it's sad to say, but it's true. Do a Google search for your personal information or someone you know and see if a people search site shows up. The information is easily accessible because of data brokers who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. And so for me, protecting my and my family's personal data and information is at the utmost importance because of the terrible experience I had 4 years ago. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They will even opt out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in any data breach and exposed on the dark web. Aura's app also features VPN password manager, real-time credit card and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your device from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app, which is what makes it so amazing, so that you don't have to use multiple platforms and sites to protect yourself. Let Aura do the hard work, keeping you safe online. And if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link below. You'll be shocked at how much your private information Aura finds exposed over 2 weeks. I was shocked at how much my information Aura was able to find when I was using the app. Go to aura.com/CBC to start your free trial. Also linked in the description, or you can scan the QR code here. Now back to the video. All right. So the first voicemail up for today is from Michael Korn.
Hey, good morning. What's up, Haize? Michael here. Point blank question about who you'd like to see play center for the Bulls next season. Would you rather see Vuce or Brook Lopez at center for the Bulls? Let's say, assuming same salary. I was reading that Brook Lopez is unrestricted this year. Who would you have? Let's say same contract terms, or who would you price a little higher, a little lower, or significantly higher, significantly lower? And what do you think their ultimate salaries will be? Hey, thanks. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Bye-bye.
All right. Really, really good question here. What I'll say is that initially I went and looked at like some of their stats and things like that. And Brook Lopez takes more threes than Marko Simmonovic, hits them at a better rate. He shoots a better overall percentage than Marko Simmonovic. Marko Simmonovic. Brook Lopez shoots the three better than Nikola Vucevic. She takes more and hits them at a much better rate. He has way more blocks per game than Nikola Vucevic. It's not even close. Last season, Brook Lopez averaged 2.6 blocks per game, whereas Marko Simmonovic didn't even average one after averaging 1 block per game in his first, last season for the Chicago Bulls, his first full season for the Bulls. But where things start differing at is that Vuce's rebounding rate is considerably higher than Brook Lopez. We're talking not even in the same stratosphere. Now, again, Brook Lopez is also on a team with better rebounders all around him in a more traditional lineup, so that makes sense there. But again, when you really look at Nikola Vucevic and Brook Lopez, the difference is the defense. Brook Lopez has turned himself into a way better defender who initially came in known for his offense, whereas his brother Robin Lopez was known as the defender. He's really kind of turned into a merger of both of what they started off their career with. But the age is a thing, right? When you look at Brook Lopez, he's 2 years older than Nikola Vucevic, which is fine. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at the money that it would take to sign Brook Lopez, right? That's where you start getting into some differences. Is now if Brook is willing to take a shorter term contract, then I can see it. But the thing that I think about this also is that while Brook Lopez shooting splits numbers are all higher than Nikola Vucevic's in many areas, not the points per game. Vuce still averages more points per game than him, about 2.5 points per game more than him, and he gets 3 more shots than Brook Lopez as well. But when you look at that, I think you really have to weigh the Billy Donovan portion of it. Is Billy Donovan going to use Brook Lopez correctly, right? We've seen times where he doesn't use Vuce correctly. Does Brook Lopez come in anymore and is utilized better than what Billy Donovan currently utilizes Nikola Vucevic? That's the biggest question in this, right? On paper, I can definitely understand. I think it's an either or, right? I can understand you go in either direction with either player. That defense and that actual rim protection that Brook Lopez brings, that definitely separates some things. When you look at Brook Lopez, he averaged 2 rebounds per game, 3 out of the last 5. 2.5 blocks per game, 3 out of the last 5 seasons in the NBA. The Bulls could absolutely use that rim protection drastically. But do you trust Billy Donovan to use him more? And then I guess there's also argument to be said that even if Billy Donovan doesn't utilize him better, Brook Lopez's natural just being a better rim protector just is going to show itself either way. Oh, man, I don't see him leaving the Bucks. Let me be clear. I just don't see that if they offer him a contract. But if Vuce does leave and goes elsewhere and you can sign Brook Lopez for a reasonable deal and you strike out on some of the other younger players, I on a 2, and I wouldn't get into signing him to a 3-4 year deal, but on a 1+2, 1+1 or a 2+1 on an option on that last third year, I don't think you can go wrong on that one. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one is from Jamal.
What's up, Haize? It's your boy Jamal back again with another voicemail. I got 3 minutes, so let's get into it. So I want to do a couple of voicemails coming up within the next coming weeks of players who I think what the Chicago Bulls are going to do about each player on their roster and my thoughts on it. So just expect some voicemails for that. I'm going to start this one off with 2 players, JaVonte Green and Marko Simmonovic. Starting off with Marko, it's interesting that he didn't get much, if not any, real playing time this season. It kind of makes you wonder what's going on with his development. Because while he's in the G League, he looks really good and looks like a really good player. It's crazy that he has not been able to crack Billy's rotation. I mean, we've seen our rookie get significant playing time. Not a lot, but certain moments throughout the season where even our rookie would get playing time and Marko Simmonovic not get any at all, despite the fact that it looks like he's gained, muscle and everything like that. So it's really interesting to see what the Bulls are going to do with him. Does Billy Donovan just not have faith in him or what? Marko's contract, I think, he has one more year in his contract for next season, and I think it's like $1.8 million. I'll be honest, I think he has about an 80% chance of coming back next season. The only way I really think he's going to be moved is if he is involved in some trade in the offseason, or if he requests a trade, which I doubt. But if he's really involved in some trade to make the salary work. So I don't really see us getting rid of Marko Simmonovic. What I would be interested in seeing is, does he get any playing time next season? I know his defense has been questioned and everything like that, but it's something that I think we should look at. The other person is JaVonte Green. Now, I agreed with you all throughout the season where I said JaVonte Green is probably going to get a nice contract this upcoming off season. But here's the thing about it. He hasn't played a lot. And he's had that injury, I think, with the knee. And I don't remember hearing anything whether or not his knee was completely healed down the end of the stretch of the season or not, and if that was or anything like that, because there was games where he would come back and play a game or two, but then he just didn't play anymore after that, So it's really interesting to see what's going on with his knee. I will say this. I give it about a 50% chance that JaVonte comes back, because if no team really gives him a real contract offer, he might sign for like a vet minimum just so that he can build up some of his stock if he's able to play next season. So I wouldn't be shocked if he signed for like $1 million to $2 million deal just to say, let me show the league what I can still do and that I'm healthy and healed, and then he goes for a contract next season.
All right, Jamal is bringing up Marko Simmonovic, and I know I talked about it a little bit before, but I don't understand what the plan is with Marko. I just don't. I think my light just went out. I don't understand the plan with Marko Simmonovic, just because he's done everything you can expect him to do at the G League level. He scores, he rebounds, he's worked on that three-point shot has come along, his passing has come along. He looked even better with playing with a player like Dalen Terry. When Dalen Terry was doing some of those ball handling things, we saw Marko look even better. And the thing is that I don't think you're going to gain any perspective on Marko anymore from the G League. It's at the point in time where Marko needs to be playing in the NBA, or if you can't see him doing that, he doesn't need to be on your roster. That's just it. If you're not going to play him, if you're not going to allow him to sink or swim, he does not need to be on the roster. Now, I know AK probably has some of that concern that, hey, if we do send him off somewhere, a coach is going to get a hold of him and he's going to turn into what we think he's going to be. But at the end of the day, he's not going to turn into that either if you're not playing him at the NBA level. It's just that simple. So you can't live in two worlds with Marko going into next season. You have to make a decision, and you have to at least start off with the plan of Marko being in the NBA. And then if that defense is just as atrocious as the defense is going to be bad regardless. Let me be clear here. But if those offensive capabilities and the rebounding capabilities offset those defensive deficiencies, then you could be cool overall. If it doesn't, you cut him and you keep it moving, right? But you have to know what he's able to do at the NBA level. As far as JaVonte Green, for Jamal's second half of his call, here's what I'll say on JaVonte. I love JaVonte Green, but I think that if AK is truly trying to add size and shooting to this team, we have to stop. There's people who just can't come back. And while I love JaVonte, once Derrick Jones Jr. opted into his deal, if you add more shooting and size and can play DJJ as more natural position, I think that may point to some doom and gloom for re-signing JaVonte Green. I agree with you. The injury that he sustained could help keep him for maybe another year. And then, maybe you roll the dice and he thinks he's going to play better and then maybe get a larger deal. He's 29 years old. That would be his 30-year-old season. Having a major injury in that debridement surgery, even though he came back but didn't play a lot after he came back, it's really a crapshoot with that. But if I had to bet my money, I don't think JaVonte Green's going to be back in a Bulls uniform this season. But I could be wrong on that one. All right, let's get into this last voicemail for today. We had more voicemails, but you guys know we do voicemail bags on Sunday as well. So if I didn't get to you today, I'll get to you Sunday. But let's get into this last one for today. This one's from Vaughn.
What's up, Haize? This is Vaughn. So I've been thinking about ways the Bulls can take this team next season, and after watching that All Access episode, it doesn't really come up to me that they're going to end up trading one of the big three. So I started thinking, what could they realistically do? Looking at the free agency list and trying to find players that fit what Billy likes to do and also what the Bulls need most, I'm thinking they don't trade Lamar. They go into the luxury tax for this one season while Zoe recovers. Re-sign Kobe as a starting point guard and retain Vooch. I'm assuming DJJ and Drummond use their player options in return. We trade that Portland pick back to Portland for the 2023 first-round Knicks pick and maybe get them to throw in an extra 2024 second-round pick since we got all the leverage and the seconds to spare. So I also that qualifying offer, then use that disabled player exception for 1 year to sign a player. My choice would be Seth Curry. Now the biggest decision to me would be signing a starting level power forward, one that can coexist with Vooch and allow P. Will to get more minutes off the bench as six-man. I'm looking at players like Trey Lyles or Jay Crowder. We'd have to use a taxpayer MLE at that point, which would be around $7 million, and then fill out the bench with vets for the locker room. Maybe players that aren't as concerned as playing, maybe like a D Rose. He's not as concerned as playing, maybe something like that. The Bulls' goal would be to go above that first tax threshold, but stay below that second one, which is $17.5 million. And then anything over that, they'd start double taxing with that new CBA. But come trade deadline, if Jerry decides he wants to avoid the tax they can sell, he can come to an agreement with AK saying, hey, if you are in top six by trade deadline, then settle it off. But that's an offseason I think they could give a shooting in size. Let me know what you think, hey, specifically with the choice between Trey Lyles or Jay Crowder to be around a 20-minute a night starting power forward with P. Will being our six-man, or if you have a more preferred option with that MLE. All right, talk to you later. Peace.
All right, so Vaughn is a very hopeful Bulls fan, and here's why I say that. Because if you think that Jerry Reinsdorf is going to pay the luxury tax for 1 season on some wink deal with Arturas Karnisovas, you have way more faith in Jerry than what I do. And I for one, will say I hope that you are right. I hope that with the Lonzo Ball situation, AK can present it to ownership and say, hey, I know you guys don't want to pay the luxury tax. I respect that. But we have this contract with Lonzo. Nobody's going to take it. He's not going to choose to end his career, so we can use the career-ending injury exception. We can use the disabled player exception, but then that sends us into the luxury tax. Are you going to allow me to use that to improve this team and we can make the playoffs? And then Michael or Jerry, whoever says, hey, all right, but if it doesn't look like we're on that trajectory by the trade deadline, we need you to get rid of some salary. I hope that is a reasonable outcome. Do I think the Reinsdorfs are reasonable? That's the biggest question in all of it. So while I understand the thought process behind it, I just don't see the Reinsdorfs doing that, but I do hope that I'm wrong. Now, as far as you saying the taxpayer mid-level exception, let me correct you. So the paying the luxury tax is not calculated until the end of the season. The Chicago Bulls this season ended the season under the luxury tax. So this offseason, they will have the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which is even better for us because it allows us more spending power. Now, as far as Trey Lyles or Jay Crowder, I think Jay Crow is going to go to a contender. I think the frustrations of not being really used in Milwaukee, I think his first mindset is going to be, let me try to go to a team that I feel that is contending. The Bulls aren't that. I would love Trey Lyles on this team. I would love Jay Crow on this team as well. I think if you can get Jay Crowder on a reasonable deal or shorter-term deal just because you don't want to attach long-term money to players that are that old, especially because you want to kind of have everything aligned with DeMar DeRozan comes off the books, right? So that's why I don't see the Bulls necessarily adding a lot of long-term money this offseason. But Trey Lyles is a solid pickup. I think he brings some things to this team that we need and that we haven't had. But here's what I'll say. I don't know if the Bulls, is he going to get more than what the Bulls are going to be able to offer? Basically, because we're just going to have our mid-level exception to offer. If a team offers more than that, we'll see. Now, considering his salary has not been that much at all, you could say that, hey, no, we can absolutely fit him in here. I like his skill set. I like what he brings. I like that he can play some defense and rebound the ball some. I like that he's averaged double-digit points a couple of times in his career as well. But I think you can do a lot worse. I think that Trey Lyles can come in and he can be one of those players that can play next to Vooch. He can play next to Drum too. If we still have Drum there, that's a really big rebounding lineup there at that point in time. But in what we have in Trey Lyles, do we not have in Terry Taylor already? Yes, Terry Taylor is much shorter, but you look at Terry Taylor's rebounding rate, and you can get him at a much cheaper deal. I think that may be more likely than Trey Lyles. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on that down below. But that is it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for a mailbag episode going down tomorrow, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.